You want me to do that one over again?
No, that one's fine.
Okay, so what do we do? Go to a different
Actually,
picture?
let's hold up. Yeah, so we'll go to the next picture, and
That's still the bar. Oh, that's beginning of parts.
yeah,
Is it ready to record?
yeah, it's going.
Oh, well, anyways, this is when I brought all the tools on board to start tearing the boat apart, and actually had the interior cleaned out at that point, and now it was time to start doing the 12 volt, 110, 50 amp, and get all the wiring set up in the boat so we could actually use coffee makers and refrigerators and everything else because there was no electric in the boat. And this is also when I started pulling everything in to start doing the plumbing in the boat because there was no plumbing in the boat. And that's the new toilet and more new parts and things that we needed to get rolling in here. And coffee maker always has to be the first electrical item hooked up so the captain can keep rolling on working.
That's cool too. The like space saver coffee
Yeah.
maker.
And this is when we first got on here after we cleared out all the junk in the bathroom to find out the floor was pretty shot. So we tore all the tile out, put a new wood floor in, and put PVC plank flooring in after scrubbing everything down with bleach and acid to clean it up. And that's the new toilet getting ready to be installed on the block. That's my daughter's boyfriend. The millennial had something to do besides sit on his ass and watch TV, so I put him to work pressure washing decks. If you want to hang out here, and that was a 1940s player piano we ripped out and had to tear apart and bring through the hole. So that was about a 2,000-pound piano. And this is the boat when we first bought it and had it towed in with all the ornate rotten gold work all over it and in very bad shape. And so we ripped all this stuff off the boat, all the gold trim, all the little figurines, the arches for the boom, and started pulling all the rotten wood off of her to rebuild her. That's a side shot from the dock before we started tearing her apart. That's the decks when we first started third cleaning. Still going with a pressure washer after 4 days trying to get the flaky paint off the decks in the rain. And that's the new inverter, new bilge pumps that I installed with the backup valves, duct valves, inverter. That's installed. And that's some LED lighting for the 110 system. The new TV because we had to have entertainment at night when we shut down. And that's all the new plumbing line for the toilet and sinks, shower. And that's after 5 days of rain and pressure washing decks. They're finally coming to have no flake left on the decks. And that's after a day of rain again and cleaning and trying to get her, we had to get, this thing was so covered in moss and mud and dirt that it took us probably about 15 days just to get it to where we could start sanding on the body and getting things going on it and ripping off all the rotten netting and wood. This is after we cut all the netting off and still had to come back and cut all the knot ties off that were left that weren't, as rotten as the rest of it. And then we took the Poseidon off the front and started cleaning this up and taking all the art figurines off. Yeah, same deal. And then that's the new flooring for the bathroom and PVC plank. That's the decks after, like I said, pressure washing, cleaning. The rear decks after pressure washing and cleaning. That's the kid at work again, trying to pop all the broken tiles off the floor in the bathroom, the head. That's after we got it cleaned before we put the new wood down. That's after we put the new PVC plank flooring in with the new floor moldings. And there's the new toilet I'm getting ready to install. And that's installing the inverter. Getting her wired up and done. That's the inverter. That's the new toilet installed before the plumbing went in.
What are some just like some of the tips and tricks on like the electrical and plumbing in a ship like this? Like, what do
Well,
you
when you
do?
do electrical, you want to make sure you do everything up to U.S. Coast Guard grade. So you want to buy top of the line, and you always want to go overkill.
Mm,
And you want to make sure all your new plug outlets are GFI. And you want to make sure before you do your electrical what accessories you're going to have in that area.
mm,
So you want to know if you're going 20 amp GFI or 15 amp GFI. Or you want to know if you're going to have to use a 15 amp breaker or a 20 amp breaker, because like running a bathroom, you get females with hair curlers
mm.
and blow dryers. You want to make sure you have a 20 amp service so you're not popping your 110 breaker box on the breaker or popping your GFI because they're blow drying their hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got a bunch of mean women running around the boat. And that's why the pirates said it was bad luck to have a woman on board.
So, anything else like specific on this ship that you found, like that you were like, oh, I definitely need to make sure I
Everything.
Like, yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, like what's
Yeah,
your,
what we did when we boarded this boat after we got, like I said, it was so full of junk and just, it took us 14 truckloads of trailers to get just the junk off the boat to start actually working on it. And people that have had the boat in the past that said they were going to do things to it, all they did was strip things out of it and never replaced it.
mm,
So when we got in here, I thought, well, the best way to start is to gut the whole interior in a boat.
mm-hmm.
And then we hit it with a spider, bug, and mite and flea spray and everything else and bombed the crap out of her for 2 days, stayed in a hotel. Then we came back and started the process of cleaning and scrubbing. And we tore everything out in this boat and dusted behind walls. And I mean, it was just a massive clean for 4 days. And this is the bathroom after we got it all cleaned up, the head. And now this is going to get a granite countertop put in it. Even though I refinished it, I wanted to refinish the wood before we mounted the granite, so if there was ever any leaks, the varnish would keep the new lumber underneath it from getting stained or rotted. And that's going to have an above mount vessel sink with a waterfall faucet now.
Oh, nice.
And I put all new Moen faucet fixtures and hoses with double clamps for the shower, and the Moen shower head with the bench seat in the shower made out of mahogany. That's the bathroom ceiling. And that's the galley ceiling. This is still rotted out, but I did put new LED 12-volt lighting in, and we're going to put a Corian type ceiling in it so it's cleanable, washable, and won't stain, even though now all the holes in the deck are fixed so there's no water leaks in the boat. And that was the first microwave I got, but it blew up because it was already no good, so we took it back and bought another one. Me working. That's the toilet after being plumbed. That's the floor after being finished, the head. Back to the bathroom. This is we're still before we refinished everything in there. And this is the old aft living room, which is now going to be the captain's stateroom. That's the old kitchen table, and that's solid 2-inch mahogany, so I use that for the new ratline plates to move the rear mast stays outside the boat. And that's just photos in the wall before I put all the 12-volt electric in. That's the bathroom mirror I found in the bilge, which is from the 1920s, 1930s. So I thought it was pretty cool to integrate it into the head.
Nice.
And that's a galley when we first put the shelving up to put all the spices in and stuff. And now this is getting granite countertops too. This will have all granite, and I put the new Moen faucet in, but it's going to have a single well below mount sink in the granite. So it's going to be pretty nice. And there's me putting the key. My daughter's boyfriend stayed with us for 2 weeks, and he's a TV and computer game buff, so I decided to make him learn how to work. And that's us filling all the holes in the deck with splash zone and then fiberglass coating over the top. There was holes everywhere.
So, what was that process like? What did that take?
Well, you have to chip out all the old wood and silicone that they tried to fill the holes with, which doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to come inside the hull, and you have to make a structure underneath. You can see where I got the structure underneath. So that way when you pack the new mortar in there, it's as thick as the decks are. And then once we did that, like I said, you can see all the holes around for the screws and stuff they put in. What I did then was put 4 layers of fiberglass, heavy mat, with glass over it, and then you grind them into the deck so they're level. And you can see these old vents right here all these were holes in the deck.
Oh shit.
And these vents are a hazard because they used them for aerators for the rooms, and these are for a house. So the
Mm.
water would just pour in them, run down the
Jeez.
ceiling, run down the wall, and your bed would be soaked, or your clothes, or whatever. So and also they're a trip hazard. So, because these are right in the middle of the deck.
Mm.
So I cut them all off, pulled all the mechanics out to them, and then filled all the holes. And it was 36 total.
Jeez.
Had more holes in the deck than I've ever seen. See, here's the getting finished. And this is before I started cutting off the main box on the deck that was totally rotted out. So you can see all the crap I'm pulling out of the ceilings that was going to all these. See the wood, how they plugged the holes in it with silicone and rotten wood? Everywhere. And some of them you couldn't really see them because they were under the chipped and rotten paint.
Mm.
So, and inside this box there was 4 more. Yeah, it buried under garbage. So we found them all and ended up fixing all of them. See, all these. Ridiculous. So basically when it rained, when all the holes were on the deck, there was more water in the boat than outside the boat. And that's inside the box I was telling you, the big box on the deck. This is all rotten crap that was just, I mean, unbelievable rotten mold and stinky crap inside there. You can see all the mold growing on the sides and pretty nasty, gnarly.
So what'd you do to like get?
Tore the whole thing off.
Just got rid of it.
Gutted it and got back down to the original hatch, which is right here. The forward hatch. See, that's all the rotten wood junk. See all the rotten wood. And the mold actually is pretty bad for you, so we want to make sure we got rid of all the mold. This is like day 14 or 15. I mean, we're moving moving pretty good, you know what I mean? I was working from 5:30 in the morning till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning every day. And this pole that's in the middle of this room was completely rotted out, and the ceilings were rotted out from that hatch leaking. So it was just nasty. And when I ripped it apart, it was like 4 inches solid mold all the way down, because we couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from in there. And that's the bar before I put all the new walls and everything in. That was right after I put the new water heater in. And those are the skulls in that statue right there. The top one's on the back of the boat and the 2 are on the front. I cut them apart with a saw and refiberglassed them all and made them for the boat. That's a galley starting to go together.
The new microwave.
Yep, new microwave conduction oven. That was the refrigerator we had to live in until I found one that would fit down the hatch.
So how do you design your galley?
Well, you want your galley tight, because when you're at sea, you want to be able to operate out of the refrigerator, the sink, and the stove without flying all over the place.
Mm.
So when I did it, the refrigerator was actually underneath the counter right here. That little bitty thing was the actual refrigerator. So that hole right there next to this refrigerator was the original refrigerator, but it was gone, of course. So what I did is I designed it in my head to put a big refrigerator over here and put the stove oven over here and put a garbage compactor in, and then build all the appliances underneath the shelf that feeds everybody into this room.
Mm. And that's pretty sweet. The little this little notch thing right there on the left of this image.
Yeah. And that's when I got the kid out on the front cutting all the rope off of the stay lines for the front bowsprit. He came close to falling in a couple of times. They told him that's how he got his internship, to be a mate instead of a swab. And that's our old pacemaker I rebuilt and sold sitting right in front of us.
Wow. So this was that here?
No, this is over at Bethel Island. And the guy that bought the boat pulls in and sees the pirate ship, comes walking over, and I come out of the hall and he goes, "Oh my God, you got a pirate ship now?" And the pacemaker was a big boat, but this thing skunks it. That's my daughter having fun. That was after about 4 hours of cutting online. That's him crawl. He decided he wanted to go to the crow's nest and check it out. That's my buddy Dizzy out there chipping rotten wood off. That was a 5-day project, and then another 10 days of me grinding rubber off the side of the boat. The glue that was on there was massive. These guys, when they built the boat, instead of just putting the board on and soaking it or heating it up in a steam box to bend it to the boat, they took a piece of lumber and then just filled it with this massive 2-part epoxy glue. So it actually burned the side of the hull so bad that some of the gouges in the side of the boat, when we got it off, were up to an inch difference in thickness. So I had to fill it all with new fiberglass. And this is, you can see the big chips out of it right here where the glue's coming off the side.
And so a lot of that stuff, I mean, there was no choice. Like, you had to do that in order to make it. Like, and because otherwise you're just asking for more and more leaks and trouble.
Right. And there was a lot of holes in the side where they had old air conditioning ran through holes. I mean, just a bunch of junk, dude. So I had to fill like massive holes all the way down the side. Then somebody with, you can see the grinder marks in there.
Over on the left of the
They're everywhere, everywhere. Someone took a disc grinder to it to sand it down, I guess, and just mouthed the side. And one of these window frames was chipped and all broke out, like they took chisels and hammers and tried to hammer the concrete out of it so they could take the window frames out. I have no idea, but it was nasty.
Wow.
So now it's all...
Are these window frames, these windows going to...
They're made into the hull out of aluminum. So now they're fixed, and they're getting new limousine half-inch tinted bulletproof glass put in them for a wave break, and you'll be able to see outside of them.
Yeah.
And the black will match the black of the hulls.
Oh, nice. That'll be sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see how bad their rotten wood is, and you can see if you look at the body on this thing and around the windows how bad they're gouged and chipped up, and it was just 2 weeks of working from 5:30 in the morning until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night with lights on to get the body work on one side. I went through 20 sleeves of 100 sandpaper, of 100 sheets each in discs on 40, 6 packages of 100 on the 50, and then the rest was all, I went through 5 packs of 80 getting this one side done. I went through 6 gallons of fiberglass resin, a half a roll of mat, and probably 6 to 8 quarts of $57 a quart epoxy putty on this thing, just to get one side clean. And that right there is the back forward left stateroom. When we first got on here, they used it for a tool room. Or a bar or something, I have no idea, but it had 1,000 shelves in it.
Wow, yeah, it's like
a massive mess.
Storage,
it was like somebody was tweaking and decided they just built shelves all for And this is all the crap we're pulling off, all this gold stuff. This thing had more gold on it than anything I've ever seen. So anyways, some of it was salvageable, some of it wasn't, but I gave most of it to people that were into it. And then this is us moving all the air compressors and everything on, all equipment and parts and everything to start working on the boat. And these are like wood angels with fishtails and horn blowing and all kinds of crap that was, like I said, on the walls everywhere in here. It was like the outside and the inside, some artsy guy that didn't know anything about boats owned the boat, so he just decorated it really well. That was the anchor post. For the anchor winch. This is all some of the old wiring. I stripped out tons of it that was left. This is all the old artwork coming off the side of the boat. It was so rotten that it weighed so much because it was full of water. You could actually take your finger and poke all the way through 2 feet of solid lumber.
Over here on that?
Yeah.
Or that,
yeah, you could just put your finger right through it. It was so rotten. Jesus. And that's the hole that was left when the window frames came off. All rotten.
That's back on the stern area?
Yeah. Yeah, I took it all off and got it cleaned up, and these two, he decided to bring one of his friends down, so the kid was with us for a day before he threw him off the boat because he was an idiot. and he was one of those type that didn't want to learn, and I found out he was taking Norcos the whole time he was down there. He's a drug addict, And I tried to help the kid that day, and I took it all away from him, and he ended up calling his mommy to pick him up, and he's 27 years old, you know.
Wow.
And this is just me taking pictures of some of the work before I started doing the body work, after we got all the area cleaned up to start working on it. And you can see how bad the chisel marks are all the way down the side.
Mm. And you're fully living on the boat at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. I made accommodations to live on it, to work on it, because if you're not living on it, that means you're traveling, 2 hours a day every day. So it's pretty much have to move on it to work on it to make it happen.
Yeah. When then you're in it, like you can feel it,
right.
You know exactly what
and
needs next.
And I can walk around when I'm done for the day and see what my next move's going to be.
Yeah.
When I did sleep.
Yeah. And so some of the, like this boat right here, were you using that to get access to everything?
I had to jump in that little dinghy to be able to stand out here and do all the work out front.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a balancing act out in the front in the little dinghy.
Crazy.
Yep. And that was when we finally got all the wood stripped off the front in the dinghy, so I could start doing the body work on it. And that's when I bought the refrigerator after searching for a month to find a nice refrigerator that would fit in the hole that we had designed to drop, or the hatch to drop it down inside the boat. So we had to strip the doors off, everything off the refrigerator to be able to slide it down the hole. That's just a shot of the deck after we got it all cleaned up. And there's more of the artsy crap I pulled off the boat. And that's the aft after we stripped it off with all the dolphins and rotten wood off the back. And all the gold trim that was running down the side right here with all the glue behind it. I knocked all that off. That was the tool room when I first started building the shelving in there to actually have a real tool room. And that's after when I put all the shelves, and these are really strong 1/2 inch plywood or 3/4 inch marine plywood with a 2x6 frame, and it's just strong. That tool room's not going anywhere. And that's when I started cutting out the tile in the galley to get the new refrigerator in. And the walls were so rotten, we replaced all the walls from the water leaks. And once I got all the walls and floors replaced, we replaced the GFI electrical so we could run the garbage compactor and the refrigerator off a 20 amp GFI. And I was trying to chip the tile back because I knew it was going to be a while before we put the granite in, so I was cutting it with a tile saw on the grout line after I measured it and cut the cabinets back just so I could put the refrigerator in so it didn't look so nasty until we get the new cabinets and granite countertops put in. So it was livable, So there's the rotten wall and floor I had to replace. There's the original refrigerator.
Yeah.
We found it inside the cabinet buried.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was quite the mess. And that's Dizzy finishing up some trim work up on top so I could knock all the hatches off and knock this wall back 1 inch so we could get the refrigerator to slide down.
Wow.
And that's in process. That's a hatch off of it. And that's, see how we had to knock all the concrete out of here and cut the steel frames off in the corner and bend that back 1 inch so we could get the refrigerator to drop.
Wow.
There's a refrigerator after it slid down and got all scratched up because the hole was so tight it was like a suction cup coming down. And that's me putting the hole back together so that way the rain doesn't come in. And that's reassembling the refrigerator doors so we could actually have a refrigerator.
Nice.
There she is put back together. And all this process was only 7.5 hours. And that's a shot of the galley before I started cutting into it for the new stove Force 10 oven. And mounting the microwave up on the wall and making it supportable. And that's after we pulled old Poseidon off the front. I sold him at Horace's King's Closet in Lodi. A maritime guy bought him.
What are you gonna put up there? You gotta.
That's my new figurehead, and I've had her on 5 different boats I've owned. So she's the good and the evil.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful mermaid and half skull, half pretty woman on the front.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
And that is the way they had the forward bowsprit mounted in with all the rotten steel and some kind of cloth they had glued to everything to try to keep the water from leaking downstairs. Completely rotted out. So that was a 2-day process just cleaning that mess up.
Wow.
Oh, it was nasty.
You had to just like
grind it all
chip
off,
it all
man.
out.
Yeah, grind it all off, and then cleaned it all up so we could get the the new mountings in. And you can see the posts back here. I'm starting at 5,200 all the bolt heads so there's no water leaks. And these 2 posts here we actually added to make the anchor winch and the new
Over on the
lane
left.
pin lines, right, for the front forward mount. And you can see all the rotten 4x4s under here and the rotten decking around rails.
Mm-hmm.
We had to replace all that.
Jesus.
Yeah, people don't realize the work that's gone into this boat, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been, nonstop 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15-hour days for 7 days a week for the last 5 months.
Wow.
Just with 2 of us working on it, me and Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And he only comes on Friday night to spend the night, and Saturday and Sunday we work, and Sunday night he goes home. So actually Mark gets 1 full day in down here, for the woodwork. He'll cut everything and set it out and go, okay, start putting it in. So during the week I install it all, and then when he comes back it's all installed, and then he starts on new stuff.
Yeah.
That's more shots of the rot.
Yeah, after you made some
Cleaning
progress.
it up, yeah. And that's the tool room as I was getting organized with Teflon runners and stuff so the tools don't fly out when you get in heavy water. Because the front of the boat's what takes the beating. And once we do get ready for sea, this will all have nets running across it so nothing can come out.
Nice.
Hanging nets. And that's my big workbench tool area, so it makes it nice. And now I've got all LED lighting in there also, 110 and 12 volts. So if you're at shore power, you can run the 110, and if you're at sea, it lights up like crazy with the 12 volt LED.
Nice, and you'll have enough tools to anything that goes wrong.
I'll be able to fix anything on this boat. Welders, tanks, I got extra propane.
Nice.
I mean, we got everything. Soldering kits, the plumbing equipment, the electrical equipment, extra breaker. I got tons of everything. You always have to carry extra everything. So I've got extra belts, extra 2-hull fittings, extra duct valves, extra water pumps, extra, you name it, we got it.
Nice.
And you always want to make sure you keep your old flare kits that are out of date because they're still usable. But you still have to replace them with new ones because the Coast Guard requires that you have updated equipment. So the first thing I did was run out and buy all the new CO2 alarms, all the new fire alarms, all new for every room. It's got a ABC fire extinguisher, brand new medical kits, and a brand new flare kit.
Nice.
And a new throw ring. And life jackets. That way, if the Coast Guard does board you, you're set up for all the equipment you need. And that's after 4 days of grinding, cleaning. Yeah, no 4 days of grinding and cleaning. And then at the same time, you can see where these rails are rotting and the 4x4s underneath here, which all of them were routed. So we had to router all of them to match, and that was a pain in the ass. And then put all the new head rails on here. So, because these pieces right here are for the spreaders outside for the anchor winches to drop. So they have to be really strong. So we had to rebuild all that also. And then this junk hatch had to come off right here too.
Over on the
and
left,
we're rebuilding those out of Lexan and 2x2 mahogany. Yep, and that's her when she was finally getting cleaned up, and we were actually taking the plywood and still finished building the shelves in the tool room. And that was before I rebuilt the anchor winch. But I did fill the holes where the anchor chain was supposed to go down into because they put them under the arms where you actually crank those to bring the lines in. Well, the holes should be way over here for the line to drop, but they put it underneath the handle, so it was impossible to crank the anchor lines in. It was crazy. And that's her at night when we were just finishing cleaning up.
That's pretty.
Yeah, it was a good shot. In process. That's us pulling the mainsail up and seeing how she fit because I was getting ready to move the boom up a foot and I wanted to know how big the sail was. So we had to put the sail on and then take it back off, and then we scrubbed, cleaned it, and let it dry out so we could bag her up.
What's the sail
Disney's
gonna
taking
do?
all the rough lines off of it to take the sail off now. When you're working on the boat, you want to stow your sails, and they have to be super clean so you don't get mold and rot when you're doing it.
I don't know. These are old sails.
That was the original old sail, right?
We and got so that you've got all new sails.
Right, we got all new sails now, same size.
And they're all red.
Yeah, blood red, pirate blood red they call it.
Nice.
And that's the old helm. And this was a hydraulic steering unit hidden on the inside of this.
Okay.
Old school from the 70s. So I disassembled all that because the wheel had never really been used for a helm. So what I did is got rid of this, and the pole that the hydraulics were hidden in, I told you it was full of rot and everything coming down through the back room right here. So now we rebuilt the whole wheel and the helm stand and the rollers and the bearings. So now that's actually going to be the helm. That was before the tiller and rudder went in.
Yeah. So where'd the tiller and rudder come from that you have in there now?
Well, the tiller and rudder they actually had made before I bought the boat at a cost of $17,000, 21 feet long and 2,500 pounds, and it's buoyant, so it floats. 5 guys can stand on it in the water before we put it in. And it took 6 of us and 9.5 hours in the water to stuff the rudder up through that hole. We had to weight it down with lead and about 10 old out drives on line and 2 guys standing on that underwater to get it to stand up to come through the hole.
Wow.
Because it was, there's 12 feet of it under the boat. And that's the old arch, boom arch that was completely rotted out. And the bad thing about it was only 4.5 feet off the deck. So when you're walking from the helm, you run your head right into it. So we moved the boom up and rebuilt the arch. And you can see they got a 2x4 going across the lines to support the arch because it was broken so bad and rotten that the boom was ready to fall through. And then the back of the boat, there was no cap over the top of the metal railing that was on the finished work of the Pharaoh. So this was actually starting to rot off. So I OSPO'd it for 2 days, got all the rot off of it, reground it, and put a new plate of steel in there so we could put the new back on the boat. Jesus. And that way your Pharaoh's not going to go bad. And then it's all sealed with 5200. And that's a 60-foot boat behind us, so you can kind of get an idea of the size.
And 5200, just for those that don't know, what's that all about?
5200 is a marine caulking. It's the black 72-hour I prefer. It's the strongest. It doesn't mold. It's got, I couldn't tell you the life expectancy on it. I've used it on every boat I've had. And like the Buccaneer, I built her in 201 steel boat and sealed her so well that it still has the same paint job with no rust on it today. You know what I mean? Running around in the Sea of Cortez.
Wow.
So I kind of, everybody calls me the 5200 man. So far on this boat, after 4.5 months of work, we had 127 tubes of 5200 sealant on this boat. But there's not a spot on this boat that a gnat's ass would get salt water in and start leaking or rotting anything out, including all the lumber and rails we put on. Everything was done with a putty knife, smeared a full coat on the bottom where there wasn't one little spot of wood showing, mounted. The bolts get 5200 on them. The washers, the heads get 5200. And then once the lumber is mounted, we smear 5200 around the top and bottom outside. So there's no way water can penetrate into anything.
That's sweet.
They make it in white, but it's not as strong. But if you're working on a white boat, it's great. This is a black boat, so black 72-hour. And they also make it in a mahogany. And they make it in a fast cure in a black. And then the paint and epoxies we're using on the hull and the bottom when we pull it again. The bottom's new now with all new through hulls, but we're going to put, everything's going black coal tar epoxy. And it's a new process, and it's got like a tar finish in it, so it comes out as a black matte finish, but it's like almost plastic when you put it on. So it's got like a 25 to maybe 30-year wear date with 2 or 3 coats. And easy to, when you spot it in, it blends right away.
Nice.
So you can't tell you did a spot job. And that's the aft when we got it all cleaned up and ready to start building the new galleon look. This is like the second, yeah, this is into the second week of owning the boat. That's just helm, pictures of the helm, all rotted out and everything before we rebuilt it. That's the rot that was at the bottom of the boom stays. And that was just pictures of how they had the rope lined up on putting the, we wanted to keep an idea on how they had those sails fastened to the booms. That was the old rotten sails. They had a pretty massive way of tying things that weren't correct, so we're redoing all that. And that's her after I stripped almost all the ornate, gaudy, arty-farty stuff off of it. And the boat had been blackballed at all the harbors at the coast because when it was the Sultana, the people that have owned it never paid harbor fees, slip fees, yard fees. They get work done on the boat and never pay for it. So it had it was blackballed in every marina around San Francisco to South Toledo to Pittsburgh to Richmond. So we wanted to get the name off the boat and change her around as much as we could so we would follow that path that everybody else did and be blackballed. That's a kid taking a nap on the boom. Yeah, they're pulling the sail down now. And you can see all the glue that was left from pulling all the artwork off the side. It's just gnarly. That's after we took her apart and cleaned her up. That's just the old sail coming down. That was the boom's clean. And then we linseed oiled them to start getting them back into shape.
What's that process
linseed
like?
Oil is a boiled linseed oil. You put it on wood and it just saturates into the wood and it gives it new strength. Brings it back to life. And then when you do the mast and the booms again, then you use tar and linseed oil and turpentine and it soaks it into the wood so deep that it just starts giving it strength again.
That's cool.
That was used back in the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 1800s on tall ships. That's just cleanup, Dave. Just more cleanup. I've never seen so much garbage in one boat. I was pulling the letters off that said Sultana to hide her. We were getting ready to clean the back off because we were getting ready to put the new piece on the back. Mark and this is on a Wednesday, and Friday, Mark and one of his guys from work were going to come down and start assembling the back piece. And that's the front all cleaned up with all the rotten crap off of her.
Yeah, and the holes.
Got to get it cleaned up before you start doing all the body work. That was just before dusk. Good shot, just give an example of how clean she's starting to look. My daughter's dog saying hi. That was cleaning the new sails before bagging them up. That's the main.
That's cool. Oh, it's gonna look sweet.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
There she is bagged. I had to teach Dizzy because Dizzy's part of the crew, so I had to teach him how to roll and fold a sail. And that's the beginning of the body work. Putty and grinding and smoothing and going like madman. That was one day right there. I did the whole top rail. And she's smooth as a baby's ass.
Some dead eyes.
Yep, those are dead eyes. And the dead eyes all have new line on them for the stays, but we're going to change everything over, so it's all going black line. And this is after I put the water on both sides, so you could actually hook up the water and the power on the boat off the dock. You can see the power still running up here. They had the power outlet and the water outlets mounted, stubbed up out of the center of the damn deck so everybody could trip and fall on it. So I moved all the 50 amp power out next to the plugs out here, see?
Okay.
And put the water lines in with a deck shower.
And that's on either side?
Both sides, yep.
Oh, nice.
So whichever side of the dock you pull up to, you can hook up in 5 seconds, yep. and it's out of the way when you're at sea.
That's awesome. And that's one of the cool things. Like, you're pre-thinking everything.
Got to sit up at night and reassess everything at night, and then during the morning, that's my job. I set at least 8 goals a day to finish.
Yeah.
You know, and this is me grinding and sanding on the side, getting it ready to prep and primer. And it's about 35 degrees outside. See, this is when I first started prepping the windows with the fiberglass to smooth out all the frames. Dizzy, nobody knows how to do body work, so I'm the only one that knows how to do it, so it was a long process. As you can see, all this is holes and peck marks and grinder marks, and I ended up pretty much just smearing putty down the whole side and going for it and cutting all the old bolts off down where the wood was in and filling all the holes.
Jesus.
At the beginning, everything's got a beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, see how bad this groove is down here? That's like a 1/2 inch deep. I had to fill all that. But you have to grind it all down with 36 big ass heavy grinder.
Yeah.
Laying on your side on the dock, grind it all down so you can get a lip going. So when you do your filler, you're not fighting a big stiff straight edge. That was after prepping around the windows we pulled all those frames off of, cleaning those up, filling all the holes. And that's Mark and one of the guys from his work at Monterey Hardwoods putting the first structure up to start mounting the new mahogany plywood for the aft piece. Because we already knew we were turning. This is all pre-visioned in my head, so we already knew this was going to be galleon windows. We already knew this was going to be the big arch with the lanterns and the skull and everything on it.
All right, let's stop for a bit.
Okay.